Atalanta, and this is Everyday Witchcraft. Here on Everyday Witchcraft, we explore everything from witchcraft to the occult to the paranormal and the spiritual. Every week we have special guests that have expertise in the subject matter at hand. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Witchcraft. Tonight's returning guest is Stephanie Brown. Stephanie is the co-founder and author of Modern Totemism. She is also a practicing witch and shaman for over 20 years. So no further ado, let's welcome Stephanie Witchcraft. And we have returning guest Stephanie Brown. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. We've been trying to do this show for quite a while. And even today's been a weird day, but I'm so glad that we're finally doing this. And this is on a topic, shamanism, that I don't know a lot about. I know some of the principles, I know what it is. But I really don't have that much information. And I'm super excited about it. So first of all, can you just kind of tell a little bit about yourself for those that haven't met you yet? And then we'll jump in.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Stephanie Brown, of course. I am mostly known for my work with animal totems with my husband, Scott. I'm the co-founder of the tradition of modern totemism and author of the book, The Modern Totemist, which deals with our work with personal animal spirits. But I have also been a practicing shaman for, good Lord, it's going on 20 years now. And I have been doing work to try to get shamanism and core shamanism and shamanic journeying kind of reintroduced into the pagan and witchcraft community, because it's kind of fallen out of fashion, and I'd like to remedy that. So that's where we are.
That's perfect. Yeah, and if people out there, if you haven't seen the previous episode that she and I did together, it was fantastic. It was so informative. So yes, go back and watch that as well. So okay, let's just jump right on in. First of all, what would be the definition of shamanism?
Absolutely. So here's the thing. We already kind of know within the pagan and witchcraft communities, there are just certain words that don't have a universal definition, that it's the same for everybody. Like with witch, how do you define what that is? It can kind of vary depending on who you ask. And so shaman is another one of those terms. It's going to be different depending on who you ask. But for me, the way I feel it is best defined is a shaman is on a path of direct revelation. And what that means, it's they're on a spiritual path where they interact with the spirits or the spirit realm directly without necessarily worrying about the predefined rules of a culture or a path or religion coming from somebody else. A lot of us who maybe might define ourselves as eclectic pagans are actually on a path of shamanism, and it's just an issue of vocabulary at that point. Like someone who is a Celtic reconstructionist who is trying to recreate the religious path of the ancient Celts exactly as much as they can, is not on a path of shamanism. If it's you sitting down and working out your way to communicate with the spirit your way that you've come up with, then maybe you're taking inspiration from this culture or that person, but ultimately you're making your own connection, then you are practicing shamanism. So like I said, a lot of us are shamans and we didn't even know.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You just
Yeah.
really opened my eyes up in a huge way. And the thing is just yesterday I was having a conversation with a neighbor.
Mhm.
And she was asking me questions about my past, and she was just curious. And so in saying that, of course, I'm not going to tell you all this stuff because we'll be here for hours. I think she and I spent 5 hours of a
Oh
conversation, but
God.
okay, I'm an eclectic gray witch, right? And I
Right.
practice witchcraft, obviously, or I would be a witch. Um, and but I also consider myself like I have a direct connection to spirit, and I'm on like this huge this huge journey. Well, you know, we're all on a journey, but the last couple of years have been really big. Um, and I'm incorporating all the different things, and not just witchcraft, but all the different things. I call it the Isaacs, you know, the mystic, the metaphysics, the magical, the quantum physics, you know, scientific, all the idics as I'm putting them together. Would that be maybe? I mean, I know we'd have to go into art, but is that maybe what you're talking about?
Largely,
I'm sorry.
I mean, you kind of have to think back to ancient times, okay? If you're dealing with the prehistoric era where you've got a group or a small village of like 50 to 100 people, and you've got the shaman, the person who's doing this work, they definitely would have learned traditions and ways of doing things from the person who taught them. But on the day-to-day list of tasks that they have to perform,
Mhm.
largely they would have had to just find their own way to make it work. You don't necessarily have the option of going into a nice big book, looking looking at the history of how those before you did it. You had to come up with your own way, and whether that's your own way of using energy or your own way of using herbs or crystals, you make up a way that works in the moment. And that to me is what shamanism is. When I wake up and there's a certain vibe to the energy, like say today we said that there's a weird, not quite chaos, but a vibe to today's energy, like it's not going to follow the rules.
Yeah.
And I decide, all right, what crystal do I want to wear? I don't necessarily go to a great big crystal book to make that decision. I feel the energy of my crystal collection and I say, this is the one that's going to work, that I need to balance me today. That's a shamanistic way of doing it. That's, at least that's the way I feel. Is that
That's
making sense?
That makes complete sense. Yes. And now, is there a different, has it always been that way? Like, I mean, you know, with words, the definition changes, changes,
Absolutely.
changes. So is there like an older, you know, with witchcraft, you have the ancient
Mhm.
ways, and then you have like the modern Wiccan and stuff like that. Is there, are there those two categories with shamanism too, like the old ways and the new ways?
I mean, absolutely. You know, like I said, it varies tremendously based on who you ask. For some people, when you talk about shamanism, they think back to the specific cultural traditions of different, like First Nations people of North America, or like the Aboriginal people of Australia, or the traditional people of Africa. Um, that can be kind of a loaded question though, because that word has in the past been used as a pejorative to downplay the complexity and the importance of their traditions. And so, like I said, you kind of have to just proceed with, an attitude of grace that some people might define it very differently. Largely though, within the new age and pagan community, this definition of shamanism that I'm putting forward can be traced back to a dude named Michael Harner in the 1960s, who was an anthropologist, and he founded and promoted his tradition, which he called core shamanism. And that's kind of when this working definition of shamanism kind of entered, like I said, entered our lexicon. So the 60s and 70s or so is kind of how far back it goes in that way. Like I said, some people just don't jive with the word, and that's cool. Just the same way some people don't like the word witch for what they
Hmm.
do, or they don't like the word pagan, or, words have tremendous power, but in order for them to have that power, you have to have freedom to make your decisions about what words you use and what words you don't. So witches do and shamans know, as in witchcraft. I'm being a witch when I'm making things happen, and I'm being a shaman when I seek understanding. But that's kind of my way of looking at it. Your mileage may vary.
You need to make
Uh,
a t-shirt with that on it.
yeah, I might.
Yeah. Yep. So
So
anybody out there, don't copy that idea because we have it recorded that she thought
that's
of it
mine,
first.
right? Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about Michael Harner's core shamanism, because this is kind of where it all starts. Okay. Core shamanism is, you can define it as a new age tradition, path, or metaphysical practice, like I said, uh, created by Michael Harner in the 60s. And his thought was that there is a core of belief or practice in ancient religion shared throughout the world, in that there are shared, very basic trends or beliefs in thought and practice. So what he believed those shared trends are, that there is a spiritual realm, and that it can be roughly divided into 3 tiers or layers. Um, that there are spiritual guides and teachers that come in 2 very basic forms, animal form, which he calls guides, and human-like form, which he calls teachers, who will instruct, guide, and protect shamans. Um, they use a spiritual practice that he called shamanic journeying, in which an individual enters into an altered state of consciousness or a trance state to interact with that spiritual realm. That shamanic journeying is a tool that can be used for healing an individual, often by removing spiritual blocks, power retrieval, soul retrieval, those types of things. And that shamanism was often the core of ancient religious life, that the shaman was the teacher, the storyteller, seer, priest, priestess, healer, therapist, etc. Okay. So if you share a belief in all those things that I just said, that's basically what core shamanism is. Um, it's like I said, the idea of that core running through ancient religion, it's trends, it's very basic ideas. It's not necessarily specific beliefs, but that there's a reality that has spoken to all cultures, and that comes up most in ancient cultures, and in kind of prehistoric olden times kind of cultures. All right, so we good so far?
We're good.
Okay.
Okay, we're right on track. And I
Right.
like the journey, and I journey. Um, anytime I'm going through a big change, I
Mhm.
journey. And it is a process to do. So when before we actually started shooting, I was telling you that I know I do some of the practices, but I didn't know like if it was different, if there was a different reason that I was doing it than when like somebody practicing shamanism would do it. But I do it for those exact reasons. I do it to communicate with any kind of energy from other realms and
Mhm.
to solve problems in my life, to get over things, to do shadow work. There's like a list. There's just
Yeah.
an ongoing list of things to do. Is a lot of people, when they
Mhm.
hear the word shaman, they immediately go to healer or diviner. But a shaman
Mhm.
does, from what I'm hearing, a shaman does way more than just those two things.
Yeah, I think part of where that idea that you're talking about comes from is, in practice, there's a quite a bit of difference between the goal of maybe a traditional or ancient shaman and a modern shaman. And that's mainly that, as I said, in the ancient world, the shamans served their community. So their practice was focused outward on others. It was community based. It also was, leading rituals and holidays, doing birth and funerary rites. It intersected with what we might think of as a priest or priestess role, and that they were the religious head of their community. So they were the doctor, they were the therapist, they were like you said, the seer, the diviner, their path was focused on community service. And a modern shaman can definitely have that as part of their path. A lot of shamans use their skill with shamanic journeying or other magic to heal others or to serve others. But we just live in a different society where just like with most witches, a lot of it's focused inward. It's
Mhm.
on, you know, personal work, it's inner work, it's individual empowerment, it's healing the self, it's understanding the self, it's working out traumas, it's just gaining wisdom in an inward path. That's just a difference between the culture that we live in and the culture that ancient people might have lived in. So, um, yeah, I hope that answers the question. I mean, a lot of people are thinking of that maybe more traditional role of the shaman. But I think the need for personal work is kind of where we are as a society. We
Mhm.
can't really serve the community until we've healed the self, or at least we started healing the self and then gained inner knowledge
Mhm.
of wisdom. So,
Yeah,
so
you
it
can't
can
help
be.
others, until you
Mhm.
help yourself. As far as with journey and can you kind of go into that further? I mean, I know my process that I do, and I know, I've talked to other people about it. Is there when you're going to journey, is there a set way that it needs to be? Or is this something that's between you and spirit or you and the collective or however you want to call it? Is it a personal thing that you create on your own, or is there a set ritual to do if
Um,
through shamanism?
very, very good question. So here's the thing. When you're talking about really any magical practice or idea or path, it raises the question, is this is this idea a universally known truth throughout all traditions, or is this a specific practice of this one tradition that tradition holds as true, but that others may not? Like as an example, the idea of karma, just as a basic concept, is universally true. Like it goes back to Newton's laws. Like you do an action, there's going to be a reaction. Like that's not, you can't argue that, okay? But in Wicca specifically, you have the idea of the threefold law that says actions come back to you times three. Now, that times three thing is believed by Wiccans, but isn't necessarily something that everybody else is going to believe in. Like, I don't think it's that specific that it has to be a times three result to what you're going to do. I just believe, you can just observe that actions have reactions,
Mhm.
decisions have consequences. Okay. So take you understand what I'm saying, how there's some
Mhm.
things that are universally true for magic and some things that are just unique to traditions. Okay. So when you transfer that to shamanism and to core shamanism, there are some ideas that are part of core shamanism, part of the practice, but that I personally have observed or others have observed are just a part of that path and aren't universally true.
Mhm.
There's trends that are true. So from my experience, I would say that if someone has entered into an altered state of consciousness with a sacredness to it and had a meaningful interaction with what they see in those visions, I would say that counts as a shamanic journey. And that would be it. So it doesn't really matter how you entered into that altered state of consciousness, whether you went through this ritual or that ritual, or whether you had a spontaneous vision or whether it was, dream initiated or whatever, whether that was substance initiated, it doesn't really matter. You got into the altered state of consciousness and you had a meaningful interaction. That's a shamanic journey. At least as far as me, Stephanie Brown said, to get into that altered state of consciousness in so many different ways. It can happen when you're doing meditation. It can happen when you're doing circle. It can happen when you just take a moment to touch the sacred. I would say there's no wrong way to do it as long as it works. Like with all magic, if you get there at the end, then you did it right, right?
That's true. Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. Yeah.
so according to core shamanism, though, there is kind of a little bit more set order of operations for how you might get into a shamanic journey. It core shamanism leans very heavily on the value of drumming or of other rhythmic ritual sound to induce the altered state of consciousness. And it does work really well. There's something to when it's not music, but when it's just rhythm, it kind of occupies what I think of as the like talking part of my brain, the present
Hmm.
part, and really lets you just work from the back part of your brain, like the unconscious part, the part that makes dreams, the part that is your imagination, the part that is a little bit more able to understand some of those profound spiritual truths, whether that's inner or outer. It interacts with the spirit better. But whatever you want to do to get there, to get to that state of mind, I'm not going to tell you what to do. If it works, it works. Um, drumming works pretty well though. So if you're coming in and it's something that you want to start learning, um, I would say go with drumming.
Yes, me
Um,
too, for sure.
or or something similar like rattling or something that makes that rhythmic sound.
Right.
Uh,
And it also helps me if that sound is not coming from me. Like I'm not actually now I have been in an altered state while drumming,
mhm,
but my best results are when I'm hearing it. And I actually have a piece that my son introduced me to. And it's very repetitive. It's very
mhm,
repetitive for quite a couple hours. Um, and I guess because it helped me do it before, now
mhm,
when I hear that, it's so much faster. I use the same piece.
mhm.
I've used other pieces too, but I use that same piece and I can get to that state it's like my brain goes whoop, and
Yeah,
just turns on
absolutely. You
and
you
puts
can
me in it.
condition yourself to have that reaction. And I agree with you. It's hard to shamanic journey and drum at the same time. It's sort of a like, you know, patting head, rubbing stomach kind of thing.
Right.
It's
Right.
coordination wise, it's hard to do. Um, However, when I'm in the process of relaxing and getting into the shamanic journey, I find that the physical action of drumming helps relax me and put me into that state. So what I do is I do both. I put on a MP3 recording or whatever of shamanic drumming, and then I also drum along with it.
Oh,
But so that when I'm ready to fully get into the journey, I can stop my own drumming, but the recording is still going. So the no rhythm is lost.
that's
Um,
brilliant.
the the way that Michael Harner talks about doing it in his book is that you get somebody else to drum for you, which works, but we don't always have somebody else on hand to help us. And also sometimes it's weird. I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, you have to be really close to somebody to have them
It's
just
just
be like
weird.
staring at you
Just
while
like you
you're
talked
doing
about
this,
having a
special track that you listen to that
Hmm.
you've conditioned yourself to go into the journey. It's also helpful to have specific tools that you use that also kind of like triggers your brain. So it's like I have when I'm going to be leading other people in a journey, I have my hand drum that I use. But when I'm just doing it with myself, I have my little drum that I use. And I don't really use it for anything else except journeying. so that when I've got it in my hands and I'm starting to hear the sound, that's another thing that my brain just goes, oh, we're going to journey. So let's get into that mindset. All right.
And specifically, with like, okay, with witchcraft, in a lot of passive witchcraft, your ritual jewelry is ritual jewelry. You don't usually wear it somewhere. Your tools are for this purpose. You don't use them for. So, in saying that, is the same principle, does that go for shamanism? That drum that you use to get you into that state, do you
Correct.
use it for anything else, or is it specific, or does it matter? Does it matter? You can do both.
The big drum is, I would say it's just for ritual. It's just
Okay.
for sacred work. I have at some one point or another used it to like call people to circle or to ritual or to um like if I don't know, people were going to do like a spiral dance or a maypole dance or something like that, I would feel comfortable using the drum as part of that ritual. It is just for sacred work. It's not necessarily just for shamanic journeying
Okay.
leadership, but it is for that.
But it's for
Whereas
sacred.
my rattle similarly for signaling the beginning of sacred work, whereas um my itty bitty drum is just for journeying and it is for my journeying. I wouldn't use that if I was going to help somebody else journey.
Right.
But
Okay. That makes sense. That's specific,
I
personal
mean,
to
I'm sure
you.
you've talked with I'm sure you've talked with your students before about how, keeping these different channels of energy kind of clean
Mhm.
and
Great. Right.
organized can be very helpful in your some craft. people feel more than others that it is important to do something similar to drawing a circle, as in that you maybe should board the space that you're going to use to keep what you want in and keep what you don't want out. Um, to me, that just kind of comes down to how you feel about the space that you're in and how you feel about the natural spiritual world in general. When I do sacred work, I don't automatically feel like negative things are drawn to me. That's just me. I don't feel the need to ward my workspace, but other people do. Other people, the way they interact with the spirit, and it kind of comes down to if you're worried that unwanted things are going to come to you, your brain is drawing the unwanted things to you. So if you feel like it's necessary to make a circle or
Make
some,
the circle.
it's not gonna hurt anything and makes you feel better. Um, one of the other things that's good for is I want to state shamanic journeying is not astral projection. It is not astral projection.
Okay.
You are not seeking to take your spirit and like exit your body and then go run amok.
It's
Shamanic,
communication, right?
shamanic journeying is inward. You are going inward, and it's a weird thing how going in actually gives you access to the whole universe. Your whole universe is within your spirit, is within yourself. But at no point are you consciously trying to separate your soul from yourself because you're going in. So I have always felt like there's not as much of a risk of becoming lost or, but some people kind of have that crazy cat energy where they just don't follow rules and they can get lost. And you if you feel like that might be a risk, then taking precautions like a circle around yourself to anchor, or
Or person.
making use of some sort of jewelry or crystal or something that you feel has anchoring properties that you can use to make sure that you do not ooh shiny and then
Oh,
go
shiny.
right the hell off.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Is that
in your
making sense?
shamanism, yeah, with shamanism, I know that you said you work with, crystals and herbs and things like that. And I'm pretty sure it would include elements, but do you know how in the craft, in witchcraft, you call on, the five elements, earth, air, fire, water, spirit. Is it the same with in
Mhm.
shamanism or is it similar?
So shamanic journeying is a practice that you can incorporate into any spiritual structure. It's a lot like something like hatha yoga. It was created to be used by certain paths of Hindu for their meditation, but it can be useful for anybody of any path to use. You just kind of have to make some alterations on the belief structure involved, right? Or like a Wiccan style circle. You don't necessarily have to follow the Wiccan belief system in order to make use of casting a circle and doing a ritual in that style, right? It has value outside of it. Shamanic journeying is very much like that. You have maybe the belief structure of people who are just core shamanists over here, but whatever your belief structure is over here, you can incorporate it. So um you can shamanic journey to communicate with anything that you might want to communicate with. You can communicate with ancestors, old gods, new gods, angels, elemental spirits, totems, which is, the way I use it to communicate with totems. Um, you can actually shamanic journey and make contact with other living people who are in a shamanic journey at the same time. I've used that to interact with people that way. You can share journey. You can sit in the same room and journey with those people together. You can use it to explore the energy of anything. Like, let's say I find a cool leaf outside while I'm on a nature walk and it feels spiritually significant, and I want to know why does it feel like it's got some message to give me or some energy? Well, go into a shamanic journey and journey into the leaf or whatever it is.
Oh,
Explore its energy that way. If you're teaching yourself, like, say, crystal lore, and you find that, man, I've got some amethyst here, and I've read 10 different blogs about the magical properties of amethyst, and they all seem weirdly different. I'm confused. What do I do? I would do a shamanic journey and again go into the amethyst and explore it. And you find that the vibes of magical energy that flow through things like this is sometimes really hard to put into words. And that might be why 10 different people described it in 10 different ways. It's more like a flavor or mood rather than a dictionary definition. To me,
mm-hmm,
that's the way I say, oh, okay, I get it now. It has this mood of energy, this, you know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Um, Anytime you have a vision or a dream that feels like it's significant, but you're not sure what it means, you can shamanic journey and go back to that same place. The the value of this technique of shamanic journeying is you have control over what you're doing. It's different from, like, if you took a hallucinogenic drug like mushrooms or ayahuasca, then the plant takes you. You are along for the ride of whatever it chooses to show you. That's a different spiritual experience. Shamanic journeying is more like self-induced hypnosis. You're consciously putting yourself into this mindset, and you could take yourself out. It's much more comfortable because it's safer that way. You don't feel like, am I going to be taken somewhere I don't like? Am I going to be stuck in it for a period of time and not be able to get myself out? No, if it, if you're exploring, and then in core shamanism, the spirit realm is usually referred to as the non-ordinary reality, so the NOR.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find yourself in the NOR and you find something that you don't like, you can get out. I use the metaphor of you're paddling in a canoe down a river. Part of it is the current is taking you, but you have a paddle. So if you want to paddle over to the side and get out, or you want to slow down, or you want to go faster or go to a different area, you have that freedom. So kind of different than dreaming in that you don't have any control over what's happening to you.
And doing
Uh,
ayahuasca journeys or mushroom journeys or DMT. So, okay, with shamanic, just to be perfectly clear, shamanic journeying, if
mhm,
you are influenced under anything, that is
mhm.
not shamanic journeying,
I
correct?
mean, you could still call it that, but that's not what we are talking about with
Okay.
um
Because because like you said, if you like say the ayahuasca or
mhm,
peyote, you are experiencing an altered state of consciousness, and what that particular spirit of the plant or whatever it is that you've ingested wants to show you.
right.
Even though you can see other things, you can get all the answers, you can do all these things, but you're kind of under, it's kind of like if you're either a passenger in a car or you're the driver in the car. Is that right?
Exactly. That's exactly the
Okay.
the metaphor. You're in with the ayahuasca, you're in a canoe in some rapids, and all you can do is hold on. You don't have
Right.
a you don't have a modal. It's just like hold on to the boat
Better
because
just go.
it's going to go.
Yeah.
This
You
type of
can't just get
shamanic
out.
so this type of shamanic journeying, it's the closest thing I can relate it to is meditation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas in traditional Eastern religions like Hinduism or Buddhism, you're actually in their meditation, you're actually supposed to seek a state of mental stillness. It's about clarity, right, of mind. Whereas shamanic journeying, you are seeking a state of movement. You are embracing the visions and the things coming into your head and you're going with it rather than in trad Eastern meditation where you would be trying to quiet that. Um, the modern Western concept of the guided meditation
Hmm.
is actually really, really close to this. It's just
Okay.
you're self-guided instead of somebody else giving you, walking you through the visualizations that you should be seeing. You're doing it for yourself rather than somebody else, usually. Um, so if somebody has a problem with calling it shamanic journeying for whatever reason, you can call it a self-guided meditation. Like that, we're back to it's just language at that point,
It's just
right?
language. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of that. Yeah. That's kind of what I was asking that. And that was actually going to be my next question. Do you kind of consider it the same thing? I know there's different variations, different
Mm-hmm.
types of meditation. Yes. Or, with Buddhism stuff, it's that stillness. But like when I do my meditations in the morning, they're always guided. Always guided. So that's more of and there's always something going on with it. I'm focusing stillness and then the movement. So that would be more shamanic journeying than
Mm-hmm.
like traditional meditation.
Right.
I got you.
Right.
Okay.
I would call that a shamanic journey, but
Okay.
your
Okay.
your
Well, then
choice
I
of
shamanic journey
vocabulary
all
is
the
kind of
time.
up to you. Talk about is
Mhm.
in core shamanism, the concept of the three-layered world is super important. And that's one of those things that if you look at lots of different cultures, if you've done reading of history and prehistory and all sorts of different things of different cultures, you will notice that's a pretty common thread. The idea that the spiritual realm is divided into three layers. There's an upper world, there is a lower world, and then there is a spiritual aspect to the middle part that we are in right now. That's one of the concepts of core shamanism. This very basic breakdown of the spirit world exists. All right. Core shamanism also believes that each of these layers is different. It has kind of a different theme or a different vibe to the energy. And that depending on what you are going to be doing in the NOR, you can kind of choose which layer you want to go to so that you have the best chance of success. All right. Um, so very basically, the upper world, the above, has a vibe of it's very light, it's lively, it's beautiful, it's ethereal, it's kind of heaven-like or Atlantis-like. It's concerned with beings and ideas that are ideal. That's where you get things like ethics and holy law and things like that. They're sophisticated and graceful in action and thought and being. Okay. The lower world is dark. It's still, it has a primalness or a wildness that's earthly and natural and kind of animal in a vague way. It's concerned with beings and ideas that are kind of out of our control. So they're primal and animal. And it has a vibe that I can best describe as weird. It's not evil, it's not scary, but some people are afraid of what's weird. That's just kind of how they are. They don't like what's out of control. They don't like it, so that it makes them upset. But it's not bad, it's not evil. It is just
Different.
weird.
It's just weird.
Right?
It's like today. It's like today.
Yes. And so then the middle world is that's on the same level of us. It's the spiritual aspect of the here and now, right? It's beings in our realm, ancestors, ghosts, maybe fae or little people that live here. The energies of things like trees, plants, stones, crystals. The spiritual side that is just beneath the surface of the physical world. Okay. And so when you decide that you want to make a shamanic journey, you might make a decision. You say, okay, I would like to speak to some ancestors. I would like to find an ancestor along my maternal line that I haven't met before. I want to go way back. Set yourself up for success by journeying down. That's a lower world journey. You're going to the realm of the resting dead, into the past, into the ancient and primal. And the way you do that is when you get into your meditation to start with, envision yourself in a like nice, calm, maybe natural state. Like I like around a campfire kind of thing with nature around me. Find a path down. So a hole under the roots of some trees, or find some water and dive down, or something else. There's a mysterious ladder or something that takes you down. Go down into the lower world. All right. Um, if you were going to do like what I said of, okay, I found this leaf that I think is a message from the spirit world I want to explore, that's a middle world journey because that's in the same level as you. So find a way to symbolize that you're going from one place to another, but that's on the same level. So like I like to jump over the fire, right?
Mhm.
Or you can go to like a tree and find, a little door like the Keebler elves or something and go into the
Mhm.
same, or just if it's a really big tree, walk around to the other side that you couldn't see, right? And look for your answers there. Or um, if you're looking for, if you're doing like a divination type journey, like you say, I think I've gotten a sign about what's to come in the future and I want more information. That's an upper world journey, right? So climb up that tree and go up. Or there's more dramatic ways like, riding up in a tornado or being carried off by a bird or something like that. Um, Sometimes you may go into a journey with less of a mission and you just say, I need answers. And so you may just find that you are drawn to one of the three.
Right.
Um, Journeying is a matter of there's an element of sitting back and letting it happen. You put yourself into that scene and you start to create that story of I am here in this space and I'm going this way or seeking this or seeking that. And then there's an element of sitting back, watching what happens, following it, embracing it, but not trying to control it. So it does feel like you're dreaming. It is just a narrative that starts to happen and you follow it.
And let it.
And it sounds so simple. It sounds so simple. A lot of people wonder, okay, is that just my imagination or what if nothing happens? I I promise you, if you get that unconscious part of your brain active, the story will take on its own life and it will
Mhm.
pull you in, and you will be able to access parts of your brain, parts of your spirit, parts of your knowing that your conscious, talky, thinky part of your brain can't see
Can't
because
do.
it's too busy. You want to
Right.
talk to your unconscious brain, the back part of your brain, the stem of your brain, the lizard part that knows. And you will be able to then access truth that you maybe were too confused about otherwise, right? I'm sure all of us have had an experience like that or in one
Mhm.
form or another. So embracing the path of the shaman is about using this with
Interesting.
purpose.
I talk about your class a little bit. I don't want to forget about that. That it sounds very interesting. It's very informative. And how long have you been doing that?
Um, gosh, I mean, I've been teaching shamanic journey in one form or another not too long after I learned it, to be honest. It was one of those duck to water kind of situations. I took to it once I had it introduced to me. Um, the class that I usually do that I've been doing this year at different festivals that I'm vending at and teaching at is I take the everybody on a introductory journey to meet one of their totem animals to try and tie together my teaching work with totems with my teaching work with shamanic journeying. And my husband and I created a practice where every individual has 9 totems, which we talked about in the last episode I did with you. So chances are pretty good that any person walking into my class has at least one totem that's ready to come forward and introduce itself to a person. So I'm both helping people get their feet wet with totemism and then helping them start also with shamanic journeying. So if either of those practices speak to people, they get a little taste of it, um, so that they can learn more. But I've also done um, there's a special sort of magic that happens when you're doing a shamanic journey that is being led by someone more experienced at it. Because what I can do if I've got a group of people that I'm leading a shamanic journey on is I do the drumming, and as such, I'm controlling the energy of the space a little bit more. I can help them journey better by kind of opening that door a little bit to whether it's the upper world or the lower world or whatever. And I can help keep maybe something else that might be distracting out. And so it is a different experience maybe than doing it yourself. Which I like. It usually ends up with people having a meaningful experience that makes them want to learn more about shamanic journeying. And that's really my goal.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, shamanism and core shamanism and shamanic journeying is just something that I don't know how to describe it other than it's just fallen out of fashion in the pagan world. I mean, I encountered it, people encountered it more in like the 80s and 90s, and just when I encounter other people who know about it, it is usually older people who have come in
Mhm.
contact way back, and maybe the younger people haven't had any experience with it. And I think that's kind of a bummer because it's extremely useful, and shamanic journeying is this extremely useful tool. And shamanism kind of just describes what most of us in the witchcraft
Do.
pagan community are doing
Yeah.
anyway.
That's what I was going to tell you.
Yeah.
When we began this
Mhm.
episode, I was like, okay, I don't know anything about it. I know bits and pieces. And then as you've been talking, I'm like, wait a minute. I've done almost every
That
single,
you do.
and I'm like, every
Right.
single thing. I didn't realize
Mhm.
that what that word actually meant. And it is words, I say this every day, to at least two or three people. Words are like the meaning is from your perspective. It's what, and you hit it close. What is a witch? Or what is magic? Well, somebody, people ask me, are you a witch? I'm like, what's your definition of a witch? Because I am, but
Right.
maybe not by your definition. So I think that's where, yeah, I think that's where I was confused is the word, shaman or shamanism. I thought I
Mhm.
just had it wrong. Um, now
Absolutely.
one more question. Do you in shamanism, because I'm thinking that it's definitely not a religion, it's more like of a practice or maybe part of a belief system or something.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
In shamanism, do they believe, or is one of the beliefs everything has energy? Like everything has energy. This cup,
Uh,
the
yeah.
stars, the leaves.
Just about everybody who practices shamanism would share that animistic belief. There's some frequency of energy in everything. Core shamanism teaches that most of your interactions are going to be with two types of deities, not deities, excuse me, entities. Um, there's going to be what they call guides, which are animal spirits, and
Right.
then what they call teachers, which are more human-like entities, which might be anything from ancestors to ascended masters to sometimes things like fae folk or like non-defined other
Hmm.
conscious entity, human-like entities that think like humans. That's just a really rough breakdown of it. But there are a lot of people who work very closely with the energy of plants and the magic of plants with their
That makes
shamanism.
sense.
Really, there's no wrong answer here. Your shamanism can focus on what vibes with you. If you're somebody who works heavily with ancestor spirits, because maybe you might be coming from like a voodoo or a voodoo kind of path, your shamanism can be about your ancestors. If you're uh if you're about totems like me, it can be centered on totems. If
You
you're
can
the
incorporate it into anything.
absolutely,
Um,
if
yeah,
you're an herbalist, learning the spiritual aspects of all the herbs that you work with can be your shamanism. It can be if if your path is about healing others, if you're maybe like a light worker or something and your goal is to, or like a Reiki practitioner, and your goal is to heal the souls of others, your shamanism can be about healing. There's a whole area of core shamanism we didn't even get into that's about how you use it for healing,
for
and it's
healing and
all
stuff.
about yeah,
Another
that
show, another show.
yeah.
And I'm thinking too, the the journeying.
Mhm.
And really, I mean, think about the amazing benefits of journeying, say, into the amethyst crystal to get what it's trying to give
Mhm.
you or its energetic properties now that you know you can use it for this magic. Same with an herb. Like you could go through your whole your apothecary and journey with every single plant and say, okay, what do you have for me? All right, now I know what to use it for.
Mhm.
And just your craft would be elevated to a level that you can't even explain. You're
Absolutely. I mean,
communicating directly.
the way I do my spell work, I I I learn from the writings of others, but ultimately I treat it sort of like I'm baking. I just sort of like I taste the batter and I'm like, no, it would go good, nutmeg. And there's
Yeah,
really no way to explain why the nutmeg would work other than what all your seasonings taste like. And with experience, you say, this this needs pepper. You can't
hmm,
really explain it. And I do that. I say sometimes, you know what, this spell bag needs Amazonite, and I can't really give you a really coherent explanation as to
yeah,
why, but the energy it works. And the
sure,
only way you can really know that is if you just know the energy of your Amazonite, and you can say this will flow with what I'm doing in the correct way. And
great.
that That's the way I do it. I vibe
I
it.
love it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go down another rabbit hole tonight,
Mhm,
probably. I'll be going down another rabbit hole. I'm sure all this week. Okay, so before we go,
mhm.
can you let everyone know how to get in touch with you, please, if they have questions about this or even the modern totemism?
Yeah, absolutely. So just one quick thing, since I have not written any books about shamanism, I would recommend some other authors. Like if you want
Oh,
to, the original book by Michael Harner, if you want to learn at the beginning, is called The Way the Shaman. It's this one. But there have been a lot of other authors that have written books that are really accessible, just if you want to just jump right into practicing shamanism. My favorite of such is Sandra Ingerman. As you can see, they're nice, small books. She
mhm.
doesn't put a lot of fluff in. It's just straight up, how do you practice and what should you do? So, and um, she's written a lot of other books too, but they're all good. So if anyone wants to contact me, I am on all the social media under the name of my art studio, which is Painted Caves Studio. PaintedCavesStudio.com is my website. Facebook, Instagram, I'm on it there. Directly. I am always super accommodating of anybody who has questions about totems, about shamanism, about anything that I've said. I would love to hear from anybody on it. I'm always good for it. Right?
Very good. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing the books as well. I've actually seen one of those. I
Mhm,
I don't know if I have it. I might have it. I know it's on my list anyway to get it because I've been wanting to research this topic so much. And
mhm,
thank you for coming on and
mhm.
clearing up a lot. And sending me down another little rabbit hole. And we'll have you on again to kind of move further into everything of it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you. And we'll see you
Avenue.
soon. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Thank you.